Welcome to the Prodigal and the Priest podcast, a podcast about faith, sports, and two friends from different cultures. Here are your hosts, Joey Scansella and Father Paul Bechter.
Hello.
Howdy, howdy.
How's it going?
Good, man. How you doing?
Doing all right. How was, did we already talk about how was San Antonio? I think we did.
I don't know. Did we?
I don't know. Sometimes my wife will be like, you guys repeated yourself. And I'm like, it's just because we're so busy doing the gospel message.
That's right. Every day feels the same.
Also, I got a ton of shade thrown at me this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, yeah, it's the traditional Latin mass. I'm like, yes, I understood that after the first time I messed up. The joke of the Latin mass was a joke, people.
I got not shade thrown at me. That doesn't happen. But
Exactly.
But I got some really fun comments like, well, ranch dressing may be a big thing in Texas, but it's got nothing on certain parts of the Midwest. And then there were other counter opinions saying like, well, in Ohio, we hate ranch dressing, but in Pennsylvania, we're obsessed with it.
Really?
No. I got a lot of differing opinions, but I had recipes of appetizers that are founded, like their central foundational ingredient is ranch dressing. Thrown at me, like, yeah.
And these are people all who live in Texas.
It's a great debate. Well, yes, but they haven't always lived here.
True.
And some of them haven't lived here for that long. It's Ranchgate. This is the great scandal of our time.
I mean, it's just the practical that when you look at ranch dressing, just being from New Jersey,
dipping sauce or repulsive?
Right. So growing up, I only knew ranch dressing as a dressing for salad in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. I never knew people used it for anything else because, let's face it, there weren't really Chick-fil-A's in New Jersey. There was like one way far out. So people weren't like dipping nuggets. They're going to a deli. They're going to get a sandwich. No one's putting the travesty of ranch dressing on some great sandwich that with the just bread and the deli meat and all of that. Mm-hmm. No, they wouldn't do that to that. So growing up, somebody's like you want ranch?
Pastrami on rye with ranch dressing.
Like, no. Or like a Reuben.
Mushroom Swiss. Or what am I talking about? Turkey Swiss. Mushroom Swiss is a burger.
I was like, mushroom Swiss burger.
That's a burger.
You're channeling your inner Whataburger. Yeah, so growing
Swiss.
up, it was like, unless there was a salad, we didn't talk about ranch dressing. Then I moved to Texas. Or no, I said when I went on net, I had all these teammates. It was like, no matter what we were eating, they're like, you got any ranch dressing? I'm like, what is the matter with all of you? Like pizza. Could you imagine a New York slice of pizza and just dipping that thing in ranch? It makes me ill thinking about it.
I don't know if I should be a little embarrassed about this.
Oh no.
Kind of sounds good to me. I've gotten into the thing, the ranch dressing pizza thing. I'm into it.
More than your horseradish mustard thing. What is that stuff called?
The Coleman's English mustard.
Yeah. So on Easter,
horseradish
for those who don't know, on Easter we had Father Paul over for some steak, and we had some left over. We ate the next day on some bread on a ciabatta roll. It was very good. Thank you, Costco. Clutch on the ciabatta roll. So, but you were like, okay, let's take this little, there was like a jalapeno sour cream, like little side for the salad. And you were like, let's hit some Coleman's.
Yeah, I have the powdered Coleman's English mustard, or powder, the powdered powder. And
powder.
And I grew up eating this stuff. It's a British thing. It's horseradish mustard. Mm-hmm. And it's got the Queen's seal on it and stuff. It's, British food. And I finally found it in the grocery store, but I didn't find the like pre-mixed version. I just found the powdered version.
Because growing up, you everywhere just had like kind of squirt bottles. Like
no, it's never squirt. It's always because it's British, so it's got to be sort of a little more refined. Like you have a small knife that you that you dip into the bottle.
Is it really
and
small
spread.
knife? Yeah, I'm sure. Isn't there a special
We have
word
utensils
for
for
this
this.
small knife?
I think it's called a butter knife.
No, it's not.
All right.
So you brought it over, and we
mixed some into the crema.
it was
and-
good. It was good if you like horseradish.
Which I do. It's one of the best.
But I
One of those
realize a lot
things.
of people don't,
And they're wrong.
and they're wrong. So I wanted to take
All
a
right.
topic today that somebody had asked with a question, and it kind of follows up what we talked about with the Sabbath and living out kind of a Sabbath, and sports, and should your kids play sports or not, or any of that. But this person had asked what really a Catholic home should look like. And I thought it was an awesome thing. They went the idea of like what's in the walls, what's in the rooms.
In the
But-
walls.
Not in the walls, sorry. It might have said
on the
in.
walls?
Should not. Yeah, what should or should not be on the wall or in the rooms.
2x4. Support
2x4,
beams.
support beams, sheetrock, no, insulation. That's it.
Brick.
But then also, if we take this idea, they talked about a domestic church, beautiful churches, aid in worship, kind of what draws us to them. What do we do in our homes to make that, this idea of domestic church? And I think it's an interesting topic because just like our intro, we love faith. It's our life. We love sports.
It's
Right under faith life. But I've had this debate with people, just even in a Catholic home. Should your TV be in a prominent place? You come into my home. Yes, the living room. Like it's the chairs and
It's
different
the
things
TV
are
room.
centered. Yeah, it's a TV room. Now, over our fireplace, we have a giant San Damiano cross.
True.
First experience that cross at Franciscan. It's very close, near and dear to us. I love it, the symbolism, all of that. And it's pretty big, and that's like the focal point of our mantle that, we can kind of spin the chairs around at night. If we pray, we turn on that light, we focus on the cross. But, there's a lot of strong opinions of if we are domestic church, if we are living this holy life, like just even something like the TV. Like, is it okay to have your TV in a prominent place if we're called to be kind of domestic church? And does that mean that every room needs to have like icons and pictures and
Right.
statues? And like sometimes you pass that house, you're like, they're Catholic. They have like 4 St. Francis statues in the front yard. They have like a giant Virgin Mary, and you're just like a little scared to go up their driveway, I don't know. What are your initial thoughts on this? I think it's just a good follow-up to if we're called to live this out and we're called to pursue faith in all aspects, and maybe that means not letting our kids do something on Sunday or focusing more on Sunday. What are we doing with our homes? And is it a problem when you have other interests or hobbies within that home?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a good question. This is going to be one of these discursive ones where we just sort of work our way through it and go back and forth. Because with prudential decisions like this, I don't think there is a clear answer. And when you're not dealing with something that's bad in itself, then there's also not just a simple yes or no.
Right.
We're dealing with something which is more like the Beatitudes, where you can always go further than like the 10 Commandments, where it's like, don't do that.
Wait, say that again for those who missed that.
So
Give that example.
Well, okay, with the 10 Commandments, right? Thou shalt not kill. And we know that there's many different ways that you can do that.
Right.
It's a
Gossip,
chapter heading.
hurting people's feelings,
Exactly.
all that. But
Yeah. But they're negatively phrased for the most part. The
Right.
Sabbath one isn't, which is kind of what we're getting into here.
right.
as
Or
an
honor your mom
extension.
and dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's don't do this thing. And it's pretty clear when you've done it or not.
Yeah.
If you're discerning enough, right?
Yep.
Attentive enough to your actions and your thoughts and stuff like that. It's like, well,
Mhm.
I did or I didn't. But with the Beatitudes, which is the way that Christ places before us as the way of perfection,
Mhm.
you can always go further.
Yeah. So give one of the Beatitudes example.
Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. Right? You can always go deeper into like trying to foster a purity of heart, a chastity of heart, a single-mindedness in love focused on God and on your neighbor and your family and stuff like that. Or blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be consoled. That one's a little more confusing, right? Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth, right? Meekness as a virtue, properly understood, imitating Christ in his manner, is something that you can always go deeper into. So
those types of ideas.
That's true with
always,
virtues in general, right? You can always be more just and more temperate and more prudent and
it's like saying, okay, how's my prayer life? It can always be better. We can always be striving for more
holiness.
More holiness.
Yeah. I can always go deeper into holiness, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And until I am perfected in heaven, which is the goal.
Yeah.
So that means that when we're looking at how to make things better in our house, how to make things holier as a family, that there's not like this sort of like baseline and, stretch goal. Like we have to set those for ourselves, but there's going to be some discussion. So that's a really long introduction to.
I love it.
To what I think. When I first...
We talked about sandwiches for 5 minutes, so it's okay. Right. This is... It's what we do.
It's one of those. When I first joined seminary, I was scandalized that priests had TVs in their house.
No.
Yeah, I thought diocesan... Because I had in my mind, like, the religious life. I thought that's what all priests lived like, was like a Benedictine or a Franciscan or something like that. And
for those who don't know, right, poverty.
They make a vow of poverty.
Yeah, they're not having TVs in their room.
Right.
Like they really look like jail cells. They kind of live in. Like there's a bed.
They call it a cell.
Yeah, they call it a cell. So just want to give that context.
Monastic cell.
Yeah.
But so that's always sort of been my image of what it should look like. And I think that is like you have to adapt everything, right, for a family. But if you're holding up like, okay, what is an ideal that we could strive towards? Not the only ideal.
Yep.
But one way this could look, it could look more like making your house look like a monastery, right? You can move towards that because monastic life is sort of set up to be a high functioning community life oriented towards the common goal of growing in holiness. Right. So that's one way to do things. And if you're going to do that, then making things look more and more like a monastery means stripping away more and more technology in there, having more and more sort of simplicity.
Right.
Yeah, probably an icon in every room.
Right.
Little holy water font in every room. Like that's how monastic cells are.
Right.
But that's not the only way that a house should look. And so I don't want you to hear that and say, all right, well, Father Paul is judging when he comes into my house. How much does this look like a monastic, like a monastery?
Right.
And if it doesn't look enough like it, he's going to be like, they're not doing the thing.
Nothing. Yeah. It's quick question for you growing up. You share a room with your siblings or no?
I did not actually.
Okay, so you each had your own room. Did your other brothers?
They shared a room for a long time, for most of the time.
I just think this is an interesting question. So
I did very early on, actually, but
okay. Later on, teenage years, or maybe
I had my own room.
10 and up, right? Did you have a TV in your room?
No, I don't think I did.
Yeah, we didn't either, which is a lot different, I feel like, than nowadays. A lot of kids having TV,
if you've got a phone
devices,
or a computer,
all of those things. So that gets into part of it later, but just curious leading into it.
Yeah, so like the monastery is one image that you can move towards, and it's just, if that's what you decide as a family that you want to make your house look like, then that's great.
Which I
But
want
if
to affirm as a parent. What I'm hearing is I have permission to throw away all my kids' crap and say, well, guys, sorry, Father Paul told me I could throw away all your toys and stuff like that. You know how many times I've stepped on a Lego? I'm done with Legos. I am done with Legos. Go ahead.
Another image, though, is like the medieval village. So, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head right now, but like the church is in the center, right, of the medieval village. It grows up around the church, but it grows in this organic, messy way. Like none of it really makes sense, like as a city planner would do it, but it develops outwards from that central reality of the church in the middle. With normally a piazza or something, and that's the communal gathering space, and the most important stuff is there. And so, like, there is a reality that, like, architecture does structure our life. Like we can't live in certain spaces and flourish in them in the same way as we could live in other spaces. I remember doing philosophy classes at UD as a seminarian, like postmodern philosophy and modern philosophy, and seeing how those philosophical ideologies or ideas anyway, less charged word, but how they would work their way into architecture. And like in modernity, everything becomes very mathematical and very, very sort of like functionary. But the houses and even the churches that were built in that period are just awful. They're unlivable because it's treating us like we're machines, basically. You know, here's the space where you do this, here's the space where you do that. There's no sort of like room for just the spontaneity and organic quality to our life.
Right.
And so like there's some, anyway, that would lead us into another topic, thinking about like the way those churches that were built intentionally according to those ideals are just awful places to worship. So anyway, my point is the medieval village, like the medieval hill town in Italy, if that is a model for what you want to make your home look like, then you need to have a central gathering place where, so that community is at the center and God needs to be at the center of that. And then everything else sort of goes outwards from that. And that's kind of what homes have looked like for a really long time, with the hearth as the central area, right? Before you have central heating, for instance, unless you're asleep in your room, you kind of need to be in the central gathering place if you're going to be warm enough.
Right.
And the kitchen has turned into that in more modern homes, where that's, even if you've got a nice living room and stuff, a lot of times people just, when they come over to your house, especially if like you're cooking dinner and it's this whole thing, people just sort of gravitate towards the kitchen.
Right. Oh, as Italians always. And it's so funny. All our houses had the smallest kitchens, but then 30 people are trying to be in the kitchen. I'm like, people, what is happening here? But that's why I guess we had that architecture, like kind of boom of open concept. Let's just knock out every wall and make it flat across. I'm like, yeah, this
sort
wouldn't
of
have
one big kitchen.
Yeah, like when we had the freeze here in Texas, we were all probably like, shoot, we can't shut any doors and close ourselves off and be warm in one area because we've just knocked down every wall and put up a few beams in the house to have an open concept. But continue.
So like just, I know I'm sort of going off topic here, but I think these are helpful principles for how am I going to organize my house, even if I can't change the architecture of it, to promote these central values of community and of religion, and to have that be the focal point. In my rectory, the sitting room in the middle is very dark. There's not light that comes through there, and nobody wants to be in there because it's too dark.
Right.
Like there's just a little bit of light, and
it's like the old oak wood.
Yeah,
I've seen it. I've seen it.
And the artificial lighting. I sound extremely old-fashioned saying that. Like just the lights that you turn on aren't pleasant.
Yeah,
and so
he lives a rough life, guys.
People. I'm just saying, people gravitate towards another part of the house, and so
right.
So like those are things to keep in mind that we we have sort of an instinctual ability to assess, do I want to be in this room or do I not?
Right.
And we can do things to change that, and we should when we're
Yes.
trying to make our family a place of domestic church.
Mm.
Putting TVs in the individual rooms and having things like air conditioning, right, where people don't have to be gathered in the center,
Mm-hmm.
allows for more kind of isolation into those rooms. I know that that's a thing. So okay, kind of exhausted that line of thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have another point.
You actually have a family though. So like for me,
Go ahead.
let me just say one more thing on that. Actually, I found like this was true also in seminary architecture. That the chapel and the refectory where you ate, the dining hall and stuff like that, those were the places where we were expected to be together.
Mm-hmm.
But then on each hall, if you didn't have a common room that was sufficiently kind of central and open and inviting enough, people wouldn't really go there.
Right.
And I've lived in some places where there just wasn't a whole lot of common space in that seminary building.
Yeah.
And like I saw the difference. People would tend to stay in their room, or they would go to like the big event, go to mass, go to the lunch afterwards, with everybody, but then there wouldn't be any lingering because there was no space to do that.
Right.
And so that's kind of what I'm getting at here is like there's a really important dimension of just the architecture forcing us to sort of linger together.
Right.
That I think we need for domestic church.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's some cool principles or some just ideas that we could toss out, and maybe you could give maybe the background on the sacramental aspect of it, and I can just toss out some things too I've seen as a youth minister just within homes. So we kind of mentioned it, TVs are not just evil within themselves. Like do my kids watch shows? Yes. Do I watch sports? Yes. Do I watch, Netflix or this or that? Yes. But it's not at the expense of my prayer life or my relationship with Jesus, and that we know we have a designated spot in our home.
Mm-hmm.
When we turn to prayer, my kids know we face the fireplace and we turn to that cross. And I think that's an important principle is knowing that you even, because in our house, right, Fran is in a room that she'll share with Sophia one day. Dom's in a room. If we have a boy, he'll share it with the boy, and me and Nikki are in our bedroom. So we don't have another room to be like, this is a dedicated, closed off prayer room, right? Mm-hmm. That might not be possible for a lot of people, depending where they live, apartment, wherever, right? Mm-hmm. Have a space though, somewhere in your home.
Yeah. A corner of a room.
Yeah. I would love
a wall of a room.
Yeah, I would love to figure out a
wall,
kneeler.
Right?
What's that?
You have an accent wall sometimes in rooms.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the accent.
Right. So I want to encourage that. Second is you see it in some homes done. We have it actually here in our office, and maybe just kind of give a little bit of background on these things. So what's the deal with Catholics? And they take this blessed chalk and they write symbols above doorways. Give a little give a little perspective of that, of maybe a Catholic home and things people haven't heard or done, or maybe an idea they could do.
Yeah. No, there's a little book. I don't remember the name of it, so it's not going to be very helpful. But it's like Catholic household traditions or something.
Okay.
I know some families who have books like that, that have all these things in them. But for that one particularly on Epiphany, it's been a traditional thing for a long time to have your house blessed, or if you can't have the priest come and bless your house, to at least have chalk blessed, and then to write this little sort of blessing for the year.
Yeah.
And it's
the Pythagorean theorem of Catholic
yeah, it looks
faith.
like this. It looks like this
Right?
little
What is it?
mathematical equation.
It's like plus 20 CMB. What does that say over there? 211? 21 plus. It's like the crucifix, right? Yeah. Not plus, but crucifix,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
Cross, and then the first two numbers of the year, so 20, and then Casper, Melchior, and
I was like,
Balthazar.
Melchizedek.
I almost said it too. Casper, Melchior, Balthazar, the three young men who were in the furnace in Daniel. If you don't know that story, look it up because it sounds crazy the way I said it. And then 21, so the second two numbers of the year.
Wait, aren't those the three wise men you just said?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Just I was just like in reference the Daniel line.
Not
okay.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Don't look up Daniel.
I was like,
these are the traditional names for the wise men.
I was, not okay. Go ahead.
That was a test, and you passed it.
I passed it.
Also, all you listeners, you probably passed it too.
There you go.
Yeah, because Epiphany is all about the wise men showing up.
Right.
And
then the
you
end of the year
with a cross.
So that's a cool thing people do on all their doorways, right? The little or a doorway.
Just on the main doorway into your house.
Nice.
On the lintel.
Doorway. Okay. You mentioned the holy water font.
Yeah.
Like little cool tradition. I know we have that. We don't have it in every room, but we have it in the front room. I think that's something great with kids and a family that helps you learn not just making the sign of the cross, but the significance of holy water. And especially during COVID where we don't get to experience that in the church. Like it's cool to have that in our homes. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great thing to do. Have a little font and teach your kids to dip their finger in the font and to bless themselves as they walk in or out. It's a very Jewish thing. Not with the holy water per se, but in the Jewish tradition, you have what's called a mezuzah. It's this little thing on the door. It looks like a little rectangle at an angle, right on the door lintel, and that's on every door that you walk through. And there's the words of the Shema, that central prayer from Deuteronomy 6:4 and following. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is your God, the Lord alone. Therefore you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your mind and with all your strength. And you shall and you shall like put these words on your lips and on your foreheads, and it just basically bind these words around you in every way. Kind of like the breastplate prayer of St. Patrick, actually. But
right.
But so they always touch that and then touch their mouth when they walk in or out of a door in order to keep that commandment of when you're going in or coming out, you should keep these words.
That's cool.
On your heart and on your lips. So that's kind of what we do with holy water, but we're also remembering our baptism. It's also sacramental. So anyway, I think that's great. If you don't have holy water, just bring a little water bottle to the church and the priest will bless it. It takes 2 seconds.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. What is your thoughts or opinions on blessed salt? And people some people will like sprinkle holy water and blessed salt around the home. It's not some like Ghostbusters, like this is magic expelling demons and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But what is the background on blessed salt and the purpose of it?
Yeah, I mean, you used to bless salt and mix it together with holy water as a thing. I think salt just has a lot of important symbolism in Christianity, right? You are the salt of the earth. But if the flavor of the salt is taken away, who will put it back, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different kind of elements like that you can have blessed and that you can use. Obviously, we use oil in a pretty central way for anointings and things like that. And
right.
There's an Eastern tradition in particular of blessing oil and using it for cooking and that kind of stuff. So with salt, yeah, you can. It's a good alternative. I don't know if there's a real distinction per se when you get down. It's just a sacramental. It's a thing that you have blessed and that you put around your house.
Yeah, and
it might be a little easier to use or more stable to keep or something,
right?
Than water.
Cool. So closing remarks. I think that we need to have an area that is designated for prayer. I think, it's awesome to have religious, icons and images and statues and all those things to bring the beauty of God, that truth, beauty, and goodness. I will say this, one thing I'm passionate about as a youth minister is if you ever said to a Catholic family, hey, would you like put up a picture of the devil in your house? They would say no, right? Most, hopefully, would respond no.
So.
But yet, and I just implore you as a youth minister who deals with this, but yet we allow our kids in the privacy of their rooms to have devices and to things that like are just leading them directly to what Satan wants and taking them down a rabbit hole and ruining their lives and causing addictions. And I'm talking about purity wise and all of that. I implore you as a youth minister. I mean, that is the one thing that I think I'm passionate about, that a Catholic household is oriented towards that communal life and nothing hidden in the darkness. Remove the devices from the room. Remove. I don't care if it's a computer for school. They can do. You can find some area they can work on and take table.
Public.
Any of that. I feel like if I didn't say that, it was a missed opportunity. Any closing remarks for you?
No, it's important for kids. It's important for adults too.
Yeah.
I try and keep that rule also, even in my own rectory of using electronic devices in public spaces. I think it's a very healthy rule of life. It does start to make your room kind of feel more like a monastic cell, like this place that's set apart for you and God, as a place of prayer and of rest. And I think a lot of people get in trouble when they start using their devices when they're tired.
Yeah.
And that trouble can look like a whole lot of things, from struggling with purity to just staying up too late and binging TV shows or obsessively checking emails or social media or whatever. It's just not healthy to have that thing sort of attached to you as an appendage all the time.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a great thing to keep that just out in a central room somewhere.
Yep.
As like, the rule is you use this in public, not in private.
Yep.
Boom.
Love it. Next, we're going to be starting a Netflix show where we go around and we evaluate homes and we say, oh, okay, so this could be more Catholic by doing this, right? We'll call We'll call it the Home Catholic Edit edition of, I don't know.
Exactly. That's the perfect title.
Extreme Home Makeover Catholic Edition.
What's the thing in Waco?
Oh, Magnolia with like Fixer Upper.
Yeah.
Fixer Upper.
Fixer Upper.
That would be great. All right, Joey Scansella, Father Paul Bechter. Take care.
God bless.